I was just starting college and I got a job because, you know, that's what you have to do sometimes when you go to college, for a retailer. And it was a place in Ohio called United Dairy Farmers. Don't know if anybody's ever heard of United Dairy Farmers, but it was really quite interesting because it's a convenience store that specializes in dairy products. And it was really a great experience. I had a great boss. But the interesting thing was that, like, in my first week of work, we specialized in dairy. So we had all these milk products on the shelves. So I come in, I'm the new kid, you know, and I noticed that the milk is out of date by 1 day. You know, it expired yesterday. Now, the rules say when your milk is out of date, you're supposed to pour it down the drain, which is a tremendous loss for the store. It means they didn't order right, you know, because for some reason the milk didn't sell. So I went to my boss, you know, this new shiny kid, and said, "Boss, you want me to dump that milk out?" "Why would you do that?" "Well, it expired yesterday." She said, "Nobody looks at those dates. And if they bring it back, we'll give them a new gallon. We're selling that milk." And I'm like, oh, but wait, the rules say we're not supposed to sell expired milk. It's 1 day. Get over it. Go sell the milk. That was my first work ethical dilemma, you know, because I'm like, wait, you know, I was really confused about what to do. I mean, she told me specifically I had to sell the milk, and I knew that it was 1 day out. Oh, that was probably the first time I really understood that ethical dilemmas happen all the time. You know, they just pop up. Like a few weeks ago, I went to Home Depot and I wanted to buy a garden flag and the little pole that holds it. But it was the end of season, you know, so they were all out of stock. But there was one garden flag on clearance with the pole sitting in the front of the store. It's only $3 and something for like the pole and the flag. And I'm like, cool, you know. So I take it to the cash register, and she said, she scanned it and she said, "This isn't in our inventory." And I said, "Well, I got it right over there. You know, you can see from here, it was right over there. And, you know, it's $3.74 or whatever." And she said, "But it's not in our inventory." "Okay, but it's it's right over there." It's like, you know, she says, "Well, just take it." All right, just take it. I can't walk out of the store with this. I mean, I want to pay you for it. There, you know, it's right over there. "No, I can't do it. It's not in our inventory. There's no way for me to do it. You need to just take it." Ethical dilemma at Home Depot. What do I do? I mean, she wants me to just take it. She refuses to ring me up. It just can happen so simply. In the world of work, we have ethical dilemmas every single day. And you know that one of the things I always like to start with is definitions. So let's look at the definition. Moral principles that govern a person's behavior or the conducting of an activity. Oh, that sounds just fine and dandy. Simple enough. Let's try this. Let's try a little poll. Now, you don't even have to tell me out loud what your answer is here, but, you know, take it for yourself. So there's my poll. How do you rate yourself when it comes to ethics? Would you say, "I'm always ethical"? Just put a halo on my head. Or would you say, I'm mostly ethical. I try. I'm somewhat ethical. I tend to lean in what direction I need to for my own good. Sell that milk. I'm seldom ethical. Or I'm never ethical. Well, most people probably answered, "I'm always ethical" or "I'm mostly ethical," right? That's what most of us answer. And the majority of us place us in those two categories because for the most part, we try to be ethical, right? We really do try. Sometimes it's hard. If you put yourself lower than that, I might be a little worried about you. But, you know, a lot of times it's just a matter of personal convenience. It was easier to sell the milk and keep my job than to walk out over this. You know, I mean, this is what do I do? You know, to avoid conflict, to avoid losing something. So probably the majority of us would put ourselves in mostly ethical. But a lot of times when I do this workshop, people say right away that I'm always ethical. So we're going to test that a little bit today. We're going to try a couple of scenarios and see what we think. Oh, I found this. I always like to put a cartoon in if I can find it. I thought this was appropriate. I figured out our neighbor's Wi-Fi password. Do you think it's okay for me to start using their network? Let me check my moral compass. Do it, do it, do it, do it. It's fine. I like that. Okay, let's talk about Jonah to get this started. Jonah is an amazing person. He has mad skills and you really need him on your team. He doesn't work for you currently, but you know that he's great because his current boss confided in you that he's probably the reason that they've had such an upturn in their success. You see this boss, you see her like once a month. There's a little networking event where you all kind of hang out and say hello. Every time that you talk to her, you know, she just raves about this person. You asked her flat out, you know, what's going on with you guys? Your sales are increasing, you know, everything's good. It just seems like you're having a really good day all of a sudden, and the rest of us aren't. It's this guy, she says. So you want him. And you're pretty sure that if you talk to him, you can offer him more money than she's paying him, and you can get him on the team. So what do you think? Is it okay to go after him? What do you think? What should you do? Should you go for it? Well, this is another ethical dilemma. What's the right thing to do? Did someone put some in chat? What'd you think, Sarah? Do you think you can see both sides? Would you go for it? What do you think? Jennifer, would you go for it? You're muted. Unmute.
I would approach him and have a conversation, probably, but
that's not very nice. Jennifer, I know you'd go for him because you need help bad.
I'm saying I'm a one-person office. I might just want to sell him on the benefits of how great it is to work as an SBDC advisor and the businesses that we get to impact and all the rewards. And I love that. And so let's do it together.
I don't know. Is that being mostly ethical? Somewhat ethical? These are the kind of dilemmas we face with ethics. Maybe instead of the definition I showed before, it should be this. It's all about how we meet the challenge of doing the right thing when it will cost more than we want to pay. So what behaviors are unethical? I mean, when you really think about it, let's see if we can think of what behaviors are unethical. I think most people would agree that lying, that's not ethical. Like you say to his boss, I would never, you know, interfere with this. So then you go and do it and try to get him. Taking credit for other people's hard work, that's not really ethical. Verbal harassment, that would be unethical. Of course, violence, non-office related work, like you're doing personal stuff when you're supposed to be on the payroll, you're being paid. Extended breaks. Some people take advantage of those breaks. Is that ethical? Even theft. I mean, and a lot of people don't consider it theft. You know, I mean, if the boss is taking home supplies, school supplies for their kids out of the, you know, your stash of office supplies, is it unethical for you to do it? Especially if you see the boss do it, like, well, then it's accepted. And that's where we get into trouble, because sometimes these things become accepted practices and also develop into norms, everyday rules. Why do we make unethical choices? Well, for one thing, it's just convenient. You know, it's more convenient to do this than to make a big deal out of it and create this whole thing. And being mostly ethical is good enough, right? So, you know, it's convenient. We do what we have to do. We sell that milk because otherwise we're going to be without a job. So we do what we have to do to be successful. There's a lot of pressure, you know, to actually lie about our progress. And there's a lot of fear connected to that. We find a way to justify it. You know, we just feel like it's the fair thing to do. I mean, we need Jonah. I mean, it's fair. Like, you know, if we offer him more money and offer him a better situation, why is that unethical, right? I mean, you need this, so you do what you have to do. That happens sometimes. You see somebody else doing it, you know, the boss does it, Okay, you can justify it. And so that's why sometimes we make unethical choices, just because it's easy for us to justify. We can justify it. Like, look at this situation. You're the HR rep for your company. You were invited to sit in on a quarterly update presentation to the board. And as you're listening, you're very aware that the financial information that's being presented is not correct. And the presenter's your boss, your direct boss. So what do? When you say, I've got to confront him, that's the right thing to do. And he says, hey, look, you need to leave this alone. Walks away. Now what do? Realize what's happening with it. You see, there are these modes of control. And this is how it works. There's laws, norms, ethics, and values. Okay, so laws are written. We don't mess with laws. It's very interesting that in customer service, if you've ever been in a situation with a disgruntled customer, if you say to them, it's the law, end of discussion, they respect that. It's the law. Okay, right. There's sanctions if you don't follow the laws, so laws. Now, sometimes people will say, well, there's no law against it, right? And we go on to other modes, like norms. Norms are rules and guidelines that are developed by the group. If you go against a norm, then you might be ostracized by the group, which is a really awful thing. They're not written rules, but this is how we do it here. For example, our work hours are 8 to 5, and you take an hour for lunch, but everybody takes an hour and a half. It's wrong, but you see everybody doing it, it becomes a norm. It's just the way we do it here. And so you participate in something that's not ethical because you see everybody else doing it, and it's become a norm. What's going to win, the policy or the norm? If you go against the norm, then the group disrespects you. What are you getting us all in trouble here? We've been having a good thing here, and now you're going to come in and mess it up for us. So sometimes we can't say that we're always ethical. We participate with this in unethical practices because it's more comfortable to do. And then, of course, you have ethics, but let's talk for a second about values. Sometimes values are written down and sometimes they're not. And writing them down doesn't mean that everyone shares in it or believes in it. It's really personal. Your values may be different from somebody else. This happened to me with a job that I accepted. 30 days in, I quit because I realized that our values didn't align. What they believed to be right, I didn't believe was right. And I had to make a decision. Am I going to sell that milk? Or am I going to walk away from this? So sometimes our values just don't align. Now, ethical dilemmas occur mostly when laws and norms conflict. And the question is, what do you think when organizational norms and laws conflict? Usually norms will win. And I know that's scary, but usually norms will win because we don't want to be ousted by the group. We want to be part of the group. Now, if you have a situation where your personal values and your ethics don't match, then you have to make a choice. Like I did. I said, I'm out of here. I can't do this. Or you can try to voice it, speak up, but know that there's a lot to be risked when you do that, right? You've heard of whistleblower. So it's a really hard situation to be in. So watch out for norms versus laws, because you know that usually norms are going to win. We have to, we're thinking about it and we're rationalizing. If everybody else is doing it, then I should do it too. Sometimes there's conflicting goals, like you feel like you have to cut corners in order to perform or whatever. We used to have this experience a lot when I worked for the state. I worked for the state of Florida for a number of years. We were putting people on performance improvement plans because they weren't meeting their productivity goals. They had to do a certain number of, what they were doing is they were approving or denying people's applications for financial assistance. And they had to do a certain number per month or else. but we didn't have any overtime money. So if they didn't get it done within their 40 hours, then they were in trouble for performance. So people began sneaking around and working more than 40 hours because they wanted to meet their productivity goals and stay employed. So we kind of set that up. Was it ethical for them to do that? Well, not really, but then again, we were pressuring them so much to meet those goals that they had to find a way around it. And the sad news is in the end, they were reprimanded. Have to be careful. And then euphemisms. This one's interesting because this is kind of I kind of learned about this in the HR world, where they're having a debate about the language that's being used in describing jobs to people in job descriptions and things. And they're trying to keep an eye on this because what they're finding is that we're using some neutral terms to kind of create questionable actions. Like, well, this job requires creative accounting. Well, what's that? You know, and another one they use is, this is a stretch role. A stretch role, which means you're going to be doing things that are not required in the job description. The other miscellaneous duties as required are going to be a lot more than 2%. Oh, and this was a good example. In one case, they said, well, we like to recycle our competitors' research, which means plagiarizing. And they were expecting their employees to do that. Instead of spending the dollars to do their own research, they said, let's recycle our competitors' research. That's a real example. So again, those things create ethical dilemmas for us because it's like, you want me to plagiarize? Oh no, just recycle it. So you gotta watch out for the language we use sometimes too, kind of crazy. So help. What do we do about all these ethical dilemmas? How do we help ourselves with this? Well, I have a few suggestions for you that I think will help. And the first one is just to create a code of ethics. I don't know if you have a code of ethics in your organization, and this is probably hard for a lot of small businesses to do, but it's something that's very important, really. It looks like Sarah just dropped off. We missed her. She's hopefully we don't have a tech problem, but anyway, we're recording. We'll go ahead and finish this. So professional responsibility for code of ethics. I got this from the SHRM website, which is the Society for Human Resource Management. And if you're looking for an example of how to do a code of ethics, I'd strongly recommend that you go check this out. I guess they have a lot of great examples for you there. And if you just Google code of ethics, you'll find a lot of great examples. So if you don't have one for your organization, this is something that you can definitely do. And this one, like I said, came from the SHRM website. So I would definitely recommend that you have some kind of a code of ethics.
I literally keep this.
Oh, there it is. Look at that. You have your values
in every office.
That's awesome.
And on our website. That's
cool. Wow. Great example. That's amazing that you could just reach there and pick it up.
It's right next to me.
That's fantastic. Now, just know this about a code of ethics. A code of ethics is a document that calls for action, and it does provide guidance, but it doesn't ensure ethical behavior because it matters how people use it, right? I mean, you can have it written down there, but that doesn't mean that everybody follows it. But just the act of having that document and sharing it, like being able to pull it off your wall and say, look, this is it. This is what we're about, is so very important. So this is something you can definitely do, is to have this code of ethics. And I'd strongly recommend that you do that if you don't have one for your organization. There are actually some decision rules. Some people have done some work to try to help us. How can we make an ethical decision? So this model gives you decision rules on how to make an ethical decision. I have to tell you, it's not foolproof. I'll show you. Let's use Jonah as an example. Jonah was going to, we decided to go ahead and approach Jonah. You guys were like, yeah, let's do this. Let's approach Jonah. So we go through these rules and try to decide if that's an ethical decision. So here's how we do it. We start with individual utility. It's okay. It's a good decision if it's good for me. Well, yes, having Jonah is definitely a good decision for me. That will be great for me. What's going to turn our company around? Yes, definitely. Social utility. It's okay if it's good for me and others. Well, it would be great for my organization, so it is good for others. And I'm justifying already. See that? It's not going to be good for the other company, but for me and others in my circle, yeah, it's a great thing. So you can see those first two are just about trying to decide good from evil, right from wrong. Okay, the second two, though, are more about doing what's right, what's good and proper. So let's see, social values. It's right if I follow a rule or principle shared by others. I have to think about this. Is this considered okay for me to go behind her back and talk to Jonah? Well, having a little trouble with that. I mean, I know a lot of people will do this and think it's okay, but and this is where we start to get into trouble, because in order for this to be like a good ethical decision, we want all four of these to be, yes, it's okay. And already I'm not a little unsure. Individual values. Let me try this one. This is I'm going to take this home to Mama and see if she approves question. Okay. So Mom, I'm going to go talk to Jonah. I know that it belongs to this other person and she confided in me, but it's right if I follow a self-chosen rule and at the same time set a social example. So what do you think, Mama? Is that okay? And my mama's going, no, that's not really okay. You're not setting a good example. Is that how we want to behave? Is that how oh, well, shoot, Mama. So some people love this model and some people hate it, and I'll leave it up to you. But it's difficult because if you come up with yes on all four, then okay, you've made an ethical decision. But I think what it does do for us, it makes us start to question what we've decided. Because even when I asked about social utility, it's okay for me, good for me and others, and I'm saying yes, but I'm also going, but wait, it's not really good for them, the organization that's losing him and this person I've become friends with. No, it's not really good. So I start to question my decision. And that's really what the good part of using this is, that it makes you think in another direction. It's this is good for me and mine, but is this really good for other people? Maybe, So yeah, like I said, some people love this, some people hate it, but it at least makes us start thinking about the decision that we're making and whether it's right or wrong. So that's good. So here's another case study. What do you think about this one? Here's what happened. So you are the HR director in a medium-sized tech company. You just left a meeting with your boss, who's like the CEO, who told you in confidence that there is going to be a layoff. Oh boy. She says that there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes to figure out how bad it's going to be, but people are definitely going to be affected, and it could be anywhere from 5% to 25% of the workforce. It's bad. If it's only 5%, then most of that can be absorbed through attrition. But either way, some folks are going to lose their jobs and there's going to be layoffs. And you jump on it immediately and say, look, I've already heard rumors about these layoffs. I can't keep this a secret. And she says, but I'm trusting you to keep this a secret because that new company that just opened up, they're hiring right now like crazy. And if our employees hear about this, they're all going to jump ship and we're going to be in big trouble. So you are not to say a word to anybody. Let me be perfectly clear with you. You are not to breathe a word of this. I'm only telling you this so that you can prepare for it because it's coming. Back at your desk, your phone rings. And sure enough, on the line is Joe. And Joe is a newer employee, but she's quickly making her mark in your company. And she's going to be a future leader. She dropped everything and moved to your city to take this job, sold her home, moved her family to take your job. And she heard about these rumors already. So she asks you straight out, because you've been a big influence with her. As a matter of fact, you've been kind of mentoring her. You really like her. She says, what's happening? I've heard these rumors. You know, that other company has jobs. You know, I can't be unemployed. I moved here. I have a car payment. I have a family. So should I apply for a job with them right now? And here you're sitting saying, oh boy, this is bad. I can't say anything. You know, that's not the right thing to do. I was told directly not to say anything. But if I don't say something, then this poor family could be like, you know, without any money to pay their rent, their car payment, food. What do you do? What advice do you give her? And she says, please be straight with me. You know, I love it here, but I can't be unemployed. What do you do? What do you think, Jennifer? What do? Do you tell her?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. On what to do. As I said, these things are happening in your organization all the time. So helping your employees to be able to make these decisions is important, because hopefully they can use something like this to stop dead in their tracks and not make a mistake or do something that will get you in trouble later, right? This one I really like, and I wanted to show you this. This comes from the City of Tallahassee, of all places, right? And they have a little card that they give their employees. And you know how sometimes you have stuff on your badge and everything? They just have this little card. It's a little smaller than an index card. They give it out at orientation, a laminated card to each employee. And this is what it says. Ask 3 questions, step 1 and step 2. Step 1, ask 3 questions. 1, is my action legal? Am I violating law or city policy? If so, you can stop because it's not ethical. Is my action balanced? Is what I'm doing fair and without harm or preference to any individual, citizen, or organization? Give you something to think about. 3, in taking this action, how do I feel about myself? If the situation and my actions are in the paper, how will I feel about the publicity? And then step 2 is, if you're still unclear as you watch what you should do, seek advice. I like that one because it's short and sweet and gets to a lot. It helps you to really think through what decision you're making and whether you're making an ethical decision. So I strongly suggest something like this for your organization, just some simple little, you know, checklist for people to know what to do. And what I really love about this one is there's only 2 steps, and the second step says, if you're still unclear, get help. You know, I think that really helps a lot. So this is really good. I would suggest doing something like that for your organization. This isn't easy. And here's why it isn't easy. Because we have this big war going on between authority and anarchy. You know, we have these bosses. We know what they say they're supposed to do. And that's important. We want to follow the rules. We want to go towards authority. If we go the other way, you risk it. You really risk being a whistleblower if you go the other way, if you go away from it. And you risk being kind of disowned by the group. So we tend to go towards authority. It's really difficult, isn't it? It's really hard. It's just not easy. We feel like we're being pulled in 2 different directions sometimes. Sometimes you'll have to decide, am I going to stick with authority, or do I believe so strongly that I'm making the right decision that I'm going to go the other way? And then there's conformity versus alienation. You know, we don't want to be alienated by the group. That's awful. So many times we go ahead and do things that we're not really sure we should be doing, but we conform. And this conformity thing is really huge. I mean, you may not think about this too much, but conformity is part of everyday life. We wear the clothes we wear because we conform to what our business standards are. The actions that we take are because of conformity. You know, we watch what's going on and we want to fit in. So we do what we have to do. You know, many times the choices that we make in our life are all about trying to conform to something that we think we want to do or that we believe in. So conformity is huge, and don't think that that's not important in your office. You know, people are conforming to standards, to norms, rules that you've made up within your office of how we do things, whether or not they're right. I want to show you this. This is a a show from 1962 called Candid Camera. And if you have, and this is just going to be a quick little film clip that I'm going to show you. But if you think that this conformity thing isn't huge, Google this. You can see a million videos on YouTube of conformity experiments that will blow your mind, because this little 1962 experiment has been copied over and over, replicated in different ways. And it's really fun to watch what people will do to conform. This is a really old video, so, you know, expect it not to be great quality, but let me show you this real quick.
The gentleman in the elevator now is a candid star. These folks who are entering, the man with the white shirt, the lady with the trench coat, and subsequently one other member of our staff will face the rear. And you'll see how this man in the trench coat tries to maintain his individuality, but little by little, he looks at his watch, but he's really making an excuse for turning just a little bit more to the wall. Now we'll try it once again. Here's the candid subject. Here comes the Candid Camera staff, 3 of them at least. And this man has apparently been in groups before. Now, here's a fella with his hat on in the elevator. First, he makes a full turn to the rear, and Charlie closes the door. A moment later, we'll open the door. Everybody's changed positions. Now we'll see if we can use group pressure for some good. Now, in a moment, on Charlie's signal, everybody turns forward. Notice they take off their hats. And now, do you think we can reverse the procedure? Watch.
Yeah, that conformity thing is huge. So your employees will try to conform to whatever standards they believe are going on in your office, so you need to pay attention. Do you believe that ethical behavior in the workplace results in happier and highly engaged employees? Jennifer says, yes, I do. Why do you believe that, Jennifer?
We want to be a part of doing something that's right. There's no pride in doing something that you feel like things are swept under the table, and not giving honor to the values, because it conflicts with us internally. And if you have that internal conflict, you're just not going to be as happy and engaged employed.
Exactly. You got it. For the most part, people want to do what's right. They don't understand what to do when someone's asking them to do something that's not right. And we put them in that position all the time. But now we know that people and leaders are motivated by doing right things. And especially Gen Z, they are very concerned about ethics. They want to make sure that they're doing right things. They want to be proud of their organization. They want to be happy where they're working. And when they're working for an ethical organization, that's possible. Otherwise, they're very conflicted and they're not sure how to handle it. And they will leave. They will leave. So it's very true that that ethical behavior does result in happier and highly engaged employees. So what are you going to do to encourage ethical behavior in your workplace? That's the question that you have to think about. What are you going to do? And fortunately for you, I do have some ideas. I know you're not surprised about that. So the first thing is just to lead by example. You know, if you do decide to stock up your kids' school supplies with office equipment, just, you know, tell everybody it's okay to do that, because that's what we do. And if it's not okay to do that, then don't set that example. You know, set the example for what's right. Cultivate emotional intelligence skills. Emotional intelligence skills are very much tied to ethical behavior. Being able to self-regulate and self-motivate and everything that goes with emotional intelligence, maybe that's something to take a look at in your organization. It will really help people to make good ethical decisions. This is one of my favorites, is to tell stories. Stories help people to understand how you expect them to behave. And I think probably one of the reasons that we do have so many ethical situations is because we don't want to talk about it. We don't like to talk about it. In fact, we should talk about it all the time. You know, what we should be doing in our staff meetings is saying, you know, what if this happens? You know, what if you see an employee leaving with office supplies? What should you do? Because even just seeing an office leave, that creates a dilemma for me. It's like, I don't want to rat on that employee, you know, but I don't know what to do. So let's have some just scenario discussions about how would we handle this? How would we handle that? What if the milk is expired by a day? How should we handle it? So that everybody's having discussions and talking about it. Because what you're going to be doing when you tell those stories is you're going to be telling your employees what's right and what's wrong and how you expect things to be handled. And you wouldn't believe how many times those discussions, even if they're just scenario based, you like make it up. What if this happens? They're going to come true. They're going to happen. And your employees will be better equipped to handle it because you've been telling those stories. One of the things I like to do sometimes with my staff, I like to ask them to make up a scenario for us. At the next meeting, you're up for what if, and that employee just comes in with a what if story. What if this happened? Some ethical dilemma. How would we? And it's hysterical because they make up some really wild stuff sometimes. But it gives everybody a good, we laugh through it, but the lessons are real. So talk about it, tell stories, communicate the standards and values often. Jennifer had them hanging on her wall. Have regular what if conversations. That's what I was just saying. Nip it in the bud. Remember, it's a slippery slope. Once you make one unethical decision, it's really easy to make the next one, and it just keeps going down. Seek expert guidance if ever in doubt. You know, it's okay to ask someone else, to go to HR for help, or wherever you can to get some expert guidance. Just like the rules for Tallahassee said, you know, if you're still not sure, talk to somebody, get some help. And pay attention. That's important for us, especially in small businesses, just to pay attention to what's going on, because as you know, there are so many things going on. There's so much activity around you every day. If you have employees who are out there doing their thing and making it happen, just make sure you're paying attention to what they're doing and what's happening, and that you kind of have your finger on the pulse of things. So those are some suggestions that I have for you in trying to make sure that you're talking through ethics and addressing it in your workplace. And, you know, see something, say something. This has become kind of common language in today's world. But how about if we establish that as, you know, our policy in our workplace? You know, are we saying that in our workplace? Because it's hard for me to know when to say something. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to appear like a bad guy. But if this is the norm, if this is what we talk about all the time and we do it every day, it becomes a norm and it becomes accepted. And it really will help us with a lot of those ethical dilemmas. So see something, say something. Watch out, because you know that people are trying to rationalize decisions. And we've seen a couple of examples here of how easy it is to rationalize, you know, to just do what's easier. Consider what's at risk and really weigh those pros and cons. So let's talk to people about how to say something. Where do they say it? What's the right way to do it? If they say something, how do they address it? Jennifer, you have any questions that you think that the crowd might want to ask us here when they see our recording? What do you think they'll ask?
You know, I think that having something in an employee handbook that addresses, you know, how an employee can make those concerns expressed, and that it would be investigated so that they can see an approach, so that way they would not feel like they'd be harassed or something like that for their own workplace environment, because it's that intimidation that other employees could use over one another that can make them feel really uncertain. And, it's not my battle, or maybe they don't need to say something because, that's the manager's responsibility, that we want to default, as you indicated, rationing
Yeah,
out our excuses for not doing things, Maybe
yeah,
we need to put up the word pilfering. Does anyone know what this means?
yeah. I think it happens all the time, and we kid ourselves when we think that that people aren't facing these decisions all the time. It just comes up all the time, even at Home Depot. What should I do?
And some people have a knack, I think, for addressing some of those things that, confront the situation without getting someone so defensive, as much as making them realize that that's a business cost, that you've taken it out. And we don't have the ability to invoice you for office supplies. So we need to have it separated between business and personal use.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. So tools. Here's a list of tools that they can use, Jennifer, and these are things I would recommend. The code of ethics that we talked about, like you showed us. Make a checklist. Like I said, there's all kinds of examples out there. Grab one and mold it for your organization. Open, ongoing discussion of ethical dilemmas. Strongly recommend that. Just make it a part of your regular conversation. And maybe consider doing some emotional intelligence training, because that has strongly been tied to being able to make ethical decisions. Judgment is critically important, and emotional intelligence training can help with that. So definitely recommend that. So Jennifer, this has been an amazing series. Look at all these sessions we've done, leading at a higher level. It's been amazing. So I would certainly encourage anyone who's interested in this to go back and listen to some of the recordings, because thank you so much for putting this out there. This was your vision, and wow, I think this has been an amazing leadership series, and certainly very valuable for anyone in small business who's a leader. And I appreciate everybody that's joined us for any of these sessions, and anybody that's watching the recordings. If I can help, then I'm always here to do what I can to help you. So thank you, Jennifer, for hosting us and for putting such an amazing opportunity out there for us.
Thank you.